All right, Eric, I'm excited about this one. This
Yeah.
one's right in my wheelhouse.
I apologize for being late.
That's all right. How's it going?
It's good. Because of a bomb threat today, I was able to go see Avengers Endgame.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I'm late.
Oh, well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Did it close the whole school down?
It closed the whole school down, and that meant I had time to go see Endgame.
Wow, my kids don't go to that school, or else they would have been out too.
That's
They would
true.
have heard about it, I
Yeah.
think.
A block away, and it's a totally different world.
Okay. Well, this isn't going to turn into an Endgame review, but
it's not irrelevant.
because today we're talking about space aliens.
That's right, aliens.
Okay, but before we do that,
Okay.
And I'm really excited too. We have a correction. To
A
issue.
correction. Oh
Yeah.
dear.
Yes.
I didn't realize we were fallible.
We have a bit of fallibility, and that's okay. So from last week's episodes, we got. I mean, someone was listening to it, and they texted me right in the middle of listening.
Oh.
Okay. And they said one of the things that Carol Lynn Pearson wanted to change, right?
Yes.
Which was the sealing ceremony.
Yes.
That's been changed.
Oh, really?
That was part
of the changes. That
yeah.
Because Oakland Temple is closed and I'm too lazy to drive to Sacramento, I don't know any of these things.
That's right. I feel the exact same way. Equally lazy, I believe.
Wait, so specifically...
the give-receive.
The give-receive thing.
Yeah.
So is it both give and receive, or is it both, only, or both
might be
receive?
Both receive, but I don't know for sure.
Honestly, I'm fine with either
Yeah.
one.
So, 1 out of 3 so far.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah. I've had some more time to think about my opinion on it.
Yes.
But this isn't the time to do it.
Okay.
But but we may want to revisit it because I've gotten a lot of feedback from different people, and some feedback has made me consider new and interesting things, and some has reinforced what I read out of the book. So it's been a good journey.
Yeah. Tomorrow we're doing section 132 in seminary, so
okay,
I'm excited to find out what comes out of my mouth.
Okay, we'll break a leg.
I may well.
Proverbial seminary leg. Okay, so that's our correction and our update. So that's very fun. So
if we were more righteous, we would have already known this.
I know, right? It is a bit.
It's a bit of
everyone
knows the truth about us now.
That we're not the kind of people that will drive to Sacramento.
That's right. It's so far, and it's such a terrible drive, Aaron.
It's so boring.
Oh, I hate driving to Sacramento.
It's just absolute
It doesn't feel like it should be that far, but it feels so far.
Okay, so there are ancestors who had to travel.
Yeah, they don't know what it's like.
They didn't have to go to Sacramento.
They've never been on the I-80.
No offense to Sacramento.
No, it's not Sacramento that's the problem. It's the drive to Sacramento that's the problem.
Eric.
Yes.
What do you know about Fermi?
He's dead.
Yeah,
He's been dead for a while,
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I have a couple paradoxes in my head, and I intended to look them up, but I was watching Endgame, so I didn't. So is this paradox the one where if the universe is infinite and there's alien intelligent life out there, then it's inevitable that we would have heard from them by now? Is that Fermi?
That's the idea. That this guy, right? His name was Enrico Fermi. And he wasn't the first person. We're going to be using Wikipedia a lot for this one.
I love Wikipedia.
Okay,
it is some of the most solid evidence that God shouldn't destroy us yet.
Exactly. So Enrico Fermi was having lunch and with some friends of his, and as part of this conversation, he asked a question that is misremembered by the three different people that were there. So they all report a different version of the story. It's not like Joseph
They're probably
Smith's
all three true in the same, in some universe.
That's right, all in some different universe. So the question was, where is everybody?
Meaning all those intelligent life forms out there.
Yeah, where is everybody? So if you have as many suns as we can see, as many stars that we can observe, right? How come we haven't heard from anybody yet? And so it's called a paradox, which some people would disagree with.
I'm not going to nitpick that myself.
Okay. But it's two senses. The galaxy should be teeming with life, but we haven't heard from any of them. Right?
Pop quiz.
Yeah.
Are you good? Are you ready for a paradox question?
Sure.
Which paradox is the one that suggests that if the universe is infinite, the night sky should be solidly stars and no darkness?
And that one's fairly fairly well resolvable.
Yes, that one's solved, but do you remember the name
of that one? I don't remember the name. I don't know
Oh.
if it has a name.
You failed me.
No, sorry.
That's okay.
I don't mean to.
We've already established fallibility, so that's okay.
That's right. That's not an issue. So, where is everybody? Now, of course, this question, the reason why I want to talk about it is because our teachings in the LDS Church are mystical along these lines.
Our cosmology is very alien-friendly.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yes.
And it offers some solutions to the Fermi. It offers some solutions to the Fermi paradox.
Does it?
That are fun to talk about. Oh, yeah.
I would say it supports the question of the Fermi paradox without resolving them. So I'm interested to see where you see the resolution.
Okay, that's great. Where should we start?
Well, last time we talked a little bit about sort of how polygamy infects the Mormon imagination.
Yeah.
And I think this idea does too. As a teenager, I wanted to write a novel, which I called Interplanetary Missionary, which I never wrote more than a couple pages of because I really didn't know what I was doing with this problem. But the idea was NASA was testing an interplanetary spaceship. They were testing it with a married couple, which was what they were probably going to be sending. And then Earth is destroyed for some reason. I don't know why. Anyway, they can't go back, and so they have to go without the full complement of staff. And it's just this married couple, happen to be LDS. And they learn in their journeys that they've been sent on a mission, really, by the Lord to go to intelligent creatures elsewhere where people aren't necessarily created in the image of the Creator, but they're still His children.
That's great sci-fi.
Yeah, and it never happened.
Yeah.
But my point is that I think that idea is in our imagination.
Well, The Expanse, which is a famous sci-fi TV show.
Leviathan Wakes.
Leviathan
Book
Wakes,
1.
Right.
Very famous.
It's great.
I haven't read it. I watched the first episode of the TV show. It was good, but I haven't gone back to watch more.
It's this fantastic TV
I don't like
show.
watching TV alone. Nobody else wants to watch it.
Set of books. And and Mormons feature prevalent.
So I hear. That's why I feel like I really got to someday get someone to watch it with me, because
right.
I want to see the spaceship Nauvoo.
Nauvoo is the name of the big world ship, and the Mormons are leaving the solar system.
That sounds like us.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, we've had enough.
They're building a ship, and they are. And I never looked up if the authors of this book were LDS or not, but
they are not.
But okay, great. And but they nail it though.
I've heard it's pretty good. Yeah, I've heard it's one of the better examples.
Yeah, there's missionaries in the book. There are, at one point you see Nauvoo's flight deck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's got angels painted in the background, like Moroni angels.
Yeah.
It feels kind of celestial, right?
Nice.
It's very, very nicely done.
It's literally celestial. It is in the sky.
It is in the sky, and it's flying away, right? Fermi's paradox is oftentimes paired with Drake's equation.
Okay, tell me about Drake.
Drake is, I thought his name was Francis Drake, but here on Wikipedia
that's a different dude.
They call him, oh right, that's a different dude.
That's a different dude. That's the guy that has roads named after him in Marin.
Okay, so Frank Drake, Dr. Frank Drake, okay?
Frank Drake. His name is Frank? That's pretty close to Francis.
Yeah. So Dr. Frank Drake...
That's a great name, actually.
Worked out this equation as part of the first meeting for SETI. The search for extraterrestrial life.
The article I couldn't find was about SETI.
Okay, so I didn't actually know this, but that's why he worked it out. He worked it out as prep. He was trying to come up with an agenda for the meeting. Okay. This was in 1961.
It was that long ago.
Yeah, 1961. Wow. And it was...
Wow, the Cub Scouts are really doing something.
Yeah, they're pounding away up there. In 1961, it was the first meeting, and they wanted an agenda. And so he came up with this equation, right? And the equation is useful because it drives conversation. Right. Not because the equation itself should be thought of as something mathematically rigorous.
Gotcha. All okay. Right. I can understand. I'm reading a book right now about Riemann's hypothesis, about some math I don't really understand. I can follow it while I'm reading it, but don't ask me 12 seconds later. I can't explain it. But I'm familiar with this manner of thinking.
Okay. N.
I love N. My favorite number.
The number of civilizations in our galaxy.
Okay.
With which communication might be possible.
Might be.
As in, they're within, we could maybe hear them. So they were focused on radio transmissions.
So radio transmissions wouldn't degrade so much that we could still hear them. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So, or whatever. You can expand this to be whatever, right? I mean, n is the number of civilizations in the galaxy.
that are
that way.
Okay, whatever.
So the way we get n is by multiplying a bunch of constants together.
Okay.
And the constants are the rate of star formation in the galaxy.
Okay.
So this just tells us how many stars there are.
Sure.
Right.
I suppose that includes like negative, like stars that fail also, right? Like sort of like both creation and destruction.
Yeah. The idea is there's tons of stars.
There are a lot.
So we start with a huge amount of stars. Just mind-bogglingly large amount.
There are a lot of stars.
And then we reduce that number by a bunch of fractions.
Mm-hmm.
The fraction of those stars that have planets.
Which is becoming a bigger fraction all the time.
A bigger fraction all the time. The average number of planets that can support life.
Which, who knows?
Who knows? All right. If the planet can support life, how many actually get life? Which are two different numbers.
Which is an interesting question.
Okay, so if they develop life, how many develop intelligent life?
Right.
Okay. If they are intelligent, how many of them develop a technology that could release signals into the galaxy?
Maybe some of them are more satisfied than us.
Yeah. Maybe some of them just don't care.
Are happy with fireside chats and don't need anything more.
That's right. And then the length of time at which they do so.
Meaning the length their civilization survives.
Right.
Got it.
Okay. So all of those numbers together gives you, when you multiply all that together, you get a number which is the number of civilizations in the planet, in the galaxy.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I tell you my first problem right now?
Okay, but let me give you what the number was.
Oh, okay.
In 1961.
In 1961.
Okay? In 1961, they worked out. All right.
Wait, how did they even decide what the fractions were?
Okay, so
that
they
feels
had
like pure
guesses.
Guesswork.
It was all guesses, but this whole conversation launched the field of astrobiology. Okay.
The whole point was just to have a guess.
Get it started.
A hypothesis you can disprove.
That's right. And so at the time, they came up between 1,000 and 100 million civilizations.
Way to play it safe, guys.
Because all of these numbers have ranges, right?
Sure, yeah.
So, for example, they guessed that 1/5 to 1/2 of all stars formed would have planets.
Okay. That seems pretty ambitious for 61, based on what I've read.
But the difference between 1/5 and 1/2
is significant.
Talking about millions upon millions of
it's a
stars,
big number, yeah.
Is a huge range. And so that's why you end up with this range between.
Yeah, when you multiply all the tiniest fractions versus multiplying all the biggest fractions.
Okay, so your first problem.
So here's my big problem with any of these kind of conversations is they're inherently chauvinistic, assuming life will be like us. Assuming life will be carbon-based, assuming life will have the same goals that we have, the same kind of ambitions we have.
Well, I have a response to that, because this initial equation didn't cover any of that. But
right.
Later, they've reworked it quite a bit.
I believe that.
One of the variables that was introduced later, it's described here called METI, okay? Which,
I don't know that.
Okay, Alexander Zaitsev said that...
Zaitsev.
Zaitsev, of course.
Oh, that's a great name.
Okay, he called the messaging to extraterrestrial intelligence factor. All right?
Messaging to extraterrestrial... Wait, say it again.
Okay, messaging to extraterrestrial intelligence. All right? It is the fraction of communicative civilizations with clear and non-paranoid planetary consciousness. Which is lovely. Which is okay. Or alternatively expressed, the fraction of people that actually will try. Okay.
Sure.
And so we don't understand what kind of life could be out there. Maybe, as you said, maybe lots of them wouldn't even care.
Yeah. You want a fun bit of trivia for a moment?
Yeah.
So, you strike me as the sort of person who might watch more Doctor Who than I watch. I
don't watch any Doctor Who.
Me neither. Hey.
And to all our listeners that are about to turn off the podcast.
I'm not anti-Whovian. I can only care about so many things.
Yeah. This is pretty much it.
Yeah, but as you probably know, even though you don't care, Doctor Who's been going on long enough that early episodes were not taped, right? It was pre-taping,
right.
They were just, and a lot of the early tapes were destroyed, and so there are big holes. But, mysteriously, some early episodes of Doctor Who have been bouncing back off of something and returning to Earth, and they've been recording them.
Okay, well, this sounds like science fiction that you're describing.
I know. I know it does. Isn't that fun, though? No, I'm not joking. This is real. But...
Okay, let me... I'm
going to assume aliens like Doctor Who.
I'm going to assume they do, too.
Yeah.
Of course, that was the premise of Contact, right? That They got which is one of my
They
favorite
got Third Eye Blind and were like,
they actually
let's
got
share with you
the first broadcast from
was
Earth.
it Lucy?
It was not.
No, what? Oh, don't tell me. I haven't seen this movie since I was a teenager, but the first thing. Oh, it was JFK.
Nope.
No,
You
dang
go
it.
back further.
I don't remember.
The first broadcast from Earth was the Nazis televised the Olympics.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, and so that went into space.
Jesse Owen.
Mm-hmm.
America.
Yeah.
America won those Olympics.
And so the signal in contact encoded that. They didn't know what it was, so they sent it back to us, right?
With prime numbers hidden inside, right?
And a bunch of.
I remember liking that movie. I've been thinking I need to rewatch it.
When they decoded it, of course, in the movie.
Question: which is better,
what did we just do?
Contact or Arrival?
Oh, that's a great question. I love Arrival.
It's a great movie.
It's one of my favorites.
And I've seen it more recently than Contact, so I like it better. But I've been wondering.
You know, I bet you Arrival's a better movie.
Yeah.
Just because it's made with a more modern sensibility, and its focus on language is really interesting.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. And Contact, when you watch it, it's really, really good. But the ending I think is really, really good. I don't know, there's something more concrete feeling about Arrival.
Yeah.
Like it feels more like an alien consciousness.
I need to rewatch it. Yeah, I need to rewatch both at some point. I'll do that this summer. Don't let me forget.
Quoting Wikipedia, and props to whoever wrote this, within the limits of our existing technology, any practical search for distant intelligent life must necessarily be a search for some manifestation of a distant technology. For about 50 years, the Drake equation is still of seminal importance because it is a roadmap of what we need to learn in order to solve this fundamental existential question. Right? It also
okay. Sorry,
it
I have a
also
question,
formed
but I can wait.
the backbone of astrobiology as a science, like I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Although speculation is entertained to give context, astrobiology concerns itself with hypotheses that fit firmly into existing scientific theories. Some 50 years of SETI have failed to find anything, even though radio telescopes, receiver techniques, and computational abilities have improved enormously since the 1960s. But it has been discovered at least that our galaxy is not teeming with very powerful alien transmitters continuously broadcasting
directly at us.
Yeah, near the 21 centimeter hydrogen frequency, and no one could say that in 1961.
Well, good, we've narrowed it down. Of the infinite possibilities, we've subtracted one.
Yeah, that's right. So, fantastic article on Wikipedia about the Drake equation, and I've always been fascinated by it. You had a comment.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, the idea that we're looking for distant technology, because as I understand it, the original goal of SETI was to look for something aliens were sending out, right? Like, intentionally.
Yeah.
And maybe it was more like their Nazi Olympics, where it's something they were sending out intentionally, but it wasn't really directed at us.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was something directly looking for us. That's also a possibility.
Yeah.
But there's another interesting possibility where I don't have the proper terminology. And if you've read about this, you can sound more intelligent than me.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the ideas is, and again, this is a chauvinistic idea, thinking about humans and the way we devour resources.
Chauvinistic, the right word?
I am choosing to use that word because I think it has the connotation that I want to use.
You're talking more like humanistic.
Yeah, but humanistic has different connotations. It sounds positive, like humans are good and we should love each other, not kill each other. And I mean chauvinistic in the sense that we assume the rest of the world, the universe, should look like us. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm using chauvinistic. But one of the ideas is a civilization that progresses further than we are will eventually have to draw on the power of a sun and suck a sun dry.
Right. That's
looking for that, looking for evidence of someone sucking a sun dry, which I think is a fascinating idea, but
we're going to talk a bit about that.
That's such a.
That's actually where we're going next.
Oh, really?
Because this goes to something called how do you actually? Well, it's along the lines you're saying. How do we actually find extraterrestrial life? Looking for radio waves doesn't seem to be cutting it. And so there's something called the Kardashev scale. Okay.
Okay. I don't know this either.
I'm fairly
or if
sure
I do, I've forgotten it.
I'm not pronouncing it. But what it does is it describes levels of civilization.
Okay.
The first level of civilization.
Oh, I am familiar with this. Yeah.
Right?
Go on.
Type 1 civilization is a planetary civilization, and it can use and store all the energy available on its planet.
Okay.
So we're not quite a Type 1 civilization ourselves. So we're using some of the energy of our planet.
Yeah.
Okay. Type 2 harvests the whole sun. All right, and this is what you're describing, which is the Dyson sphere. All right.
Okay.
Or some other kind of technology that surrounds the sun and can use the entire sun's output. Right. Any civilization that can do that, they're Type 2.
Yeah.
And type 3 is something that can harvest the energy of an entire galaxy. All right. They're the big ones.
That's Galacticus.
Right.
Or Galactus? What's his name?
Galactus is the guy
I
that
assume
eats planets.
he might be in the next major Marvel arc.
That would be great if he was.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 scales. It seems like we would have already seen type 3. Type 2 is something...
If they're close by, we would notice.
Type 2 is someone we can actually maybe look for.
Yeah.
Maybe now's a good break to talk about some science fiction before I go on to my next point.
All right, well, So I've brought with me Monsters and Mormons, which I co-edited with William Morris. It's published by Peculiar Pages. It's an excellent book. You should all go buy a copy. Look at how many hundreds of pages it is.
That's a lot of pages.
It's got comics. It's got mostly fiction, short stories, and a couple poems. 3 poems. 2 that have been relevant to our conversation so far. Let the Mountains Tremble for Adoniha Has Fallen by Stephen Peck, which is kind of like Leviathan Wakes. It's a Mormon civilization goes to Mars, but then they lose contact with Earth, and they sort of revert to a medieval culture. It's a great story. Highly recommend it. And then another one, which is a Hugo and Nebula winner. We didn't publish it first, I should say. We reprinted it. But it's by Eric James Stone, and speaking of Leviathan, it's called, and I want to say the name of the novel. That Leviathan Whom Thou Hast Made, which is about aliens who are called swales, short for solar whales. They sort of look like whales, but they live in suns, and they draw, and they're pretty cool.
Brigham Young famously believed about aliens living in suns.
Yeah, if we believed everything Brigham Young believed, we would not survive very long. But I like the idea. Maybe he'll be right. Maybe there will be swales. That's a great story, by the way.
He admitted that he said he was just speculating. It was all his own theory.
Oh, that's good. That's good that he at least once thought to say that. But the swales are cool. How do you baptize a solar behemoth?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
With some liquid, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, just like the sacrament doesn't need to be wine. It could be water. Maybe baptismal
Maybe so. I can't remember how it happens.
Don't need to be water.
There's another Stephen Peck story about a distributed AI who wants to join the church, but how do you baptize an AI?
That's great. The
proxy. Sorry, I just spoiled the ending.
Oh, no.
Proxy is the answer. That is not in our book, but that's in Stephen Peck's collection, Wandering Realities, which is also very good.
We're getting somewhere, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We're going to talk.
I have a couple more stories, but we'll save them for later.
Okay. What are some... Okay, now we're going to be moving towards how do you resolve the paradox, okay?
Yes. Wait. Before... Sorry, maybe you first.
Okay,
and then
I should have mentioned that modern estimates of the
Drake's
equation are all over the map. They're even much bigger range than what I just told you. All the way from 0. Okay,
oh, really?
That
is really low.
That seems unlikely given
that
we're talking here.
I feel like if there's 1, there has to be 2, right? That's one of my philosophies of life.
Right. That makes sense. 2, and that's the mediocrity principle, by the way.
The mediocrity
what
principle.
You just said.
Right?
Oh, the fact if there's 1, there's probably 2. I mean,
why is it called the mediocrity principle?
The mediocrity principle states that
we can't be that special.
We can't be that average.
Yeah, I totally believe that. That is something I've been trying to convince myself my entire life, and I worry I've over-succeeded.
There you go. So, but anyway, they range, and a lot of them, there's a lot of rigorous mathematics that have been applied to it, trying to figure
vigorous
out that,
mathematics based on made-up numbers.
Yes, well, some numbers are less made up now than they used to be.
That's good. I mean, 50 years have passed.
And the study of the science of error propagation, okay, lets you, if you can try to estimate the uncertainty in your knowledge, you can estimate the range of your possible variables.
Right.
So this is error propagation. There's been lots of work on the Drake equation, and some of those results are like, we shouldn't be surprised if there's no life in the universe. You know, some things like that. Not just our galaxy.
We're imagining ourselves.
Yeah. Well, no more life, I should say. Yeah. We shouldn't be surprised if it happens.
Such a lonely thought. Like, once you've accepted the possibility of life in the giant universe, it seems sad to be alone.
Well, and the other side of the range is like teeming with life, of course.
Yeah, right. Which I personally feel is more likely.
So
but
how do we resolve the paradox?
So here's my question.
Okay, your question.
I want the paradox in less than 10 words.
Okay, the paradox in less than 10 words. And you're going to make me count.
I'll count for you. You just talk.
Given millions of suns. Oh, shoot, I don't know that I can.
You've used half your words. Yeah. Millions of suns? Question mark. Okay, you just saved 2 words.
Millions of suns? Question mark. Where are the other?
So the paradox is essentially, given the potential, where is everybody? Like, if there's potential, we should have seen someone.
Maybe it's even more clear if I say, given the potential, why can't we find them?
Yeah, because the paradox is that we should be able to see them. It shouldn't be that hard.
Right.
Just like we can look out and find exoplanets pretty easily now, it should be pretty easy to find life. If life is as common as... Doesn't seem crazy to say anymore.
So, once we go through this list of resolutions, we're then gonna go
Mormonize them.
Mormon cosmology.
Yeah.
Okay?
You know what you can't say very easily?
What? Okay.
Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints eyes.
That's right.
Sorry, but it's true.
That's true. Okay. So here we go. Extraterrestrial life is rare or non-existent. Okay.
That's one of the solutions.
That's one of the solutions.
Cheery.
It's the rare Earth hypothesis, right? Is that it's just you're not
the we're special hypothesis.
Yeah, the actual it is that it's rare. Okay. No other intelligent species have arisen. We're just it.
Okay, so life is plenty common, but intelligence is strange.
That's right.
Got it. That's solution number 2.
Intelligent alien species lack advanced technology, right?
So the problem with these ones so far is, I guess this is mediocrity principle again. Like, given the age of the universe and the age of our own planet, it doesn't seem like we should be winning the race.
Right, I agree. And especially because, okay, but we'll get to that in a second.
I'm sure we will.
The water world hypothesis.
Ooh.
Okay? That it's hard to get an Earth with enough water on it to actually make it likely enough to get. All right?
I want to say that we've already found a number of exoplanets with water. Isn't that true? Or like probable water.
I don't know. I don't have a statement for that.
Okay.
Okay, here's the one that's scary.
Oh dear.
It is the nature of intelligent life to destroy itself.
Yes. I actually find that one very compelling.
It's called the Great Filter. Okay.
It
means that
you could also call it John's revelation theory.
Right, a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That in front of us, either we're gonna use up all our stuff and then die out, or we're gonna blow ourselves up.
Believable.
We're gonna come up, maybe, and now I'm quoting a video that we're gonna post.
Okay?
It's from a web series called Kurzgesagt.
Kurzgesagt. I'm not familiar with it.
They're fantastic, and they have a Fermi paradox video.
Okay.
Maybe every civilization invents a technology that looks awesome, but as soon as they turn it on, just blows up their planet. All right.
The Dr. Strangelove theory.
Well, the bomb is one of these ideas.
Sure.
But something even more devastating.
Yeah.
Okay. Or it is the nature of intelligent life to destroy others.
That's why you shouldn't go looking, right?
That's right, because maybe
you don't want to attract attention.
Okay. Periodic extinction by natural events. Eventually
periodic extinction by natural events.
Okay. We're going to get hit by a meteor. And
sort of like what we've seen in Earth's history already.
Right. Okay. There's one I'm going to.
I just read about a new one. Explanation for the end of big animals, but
I don't know what you're talking about.
I just saw a headline today, and I didn't have time to read it, but suggested that megalodonts and some other things which don't seem to be attached to a particular extinction event may just be stars far away blowing up and sending poisonous radiation that destroys things that leaves no record.
There you go.
So
intelligent civilizations are too far apart in space and time. There's not enough resources in the galaxy. Nobody else cares to live on planets. Like once you get
you leave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're looking in the wrong place potentially.
Or you just plug yourself into a computer and you're done.
Oh, this takes us back to episode earlier.
Yeah, episode earlier, exactly. It is cheaper to transfer information for exploration. In other words, you just send a probe out, right, and then you transfer yourself along with the probe.
Oh, so there's another artificial intelligence idea.
Yeah. Humans just aren't. Humans aren't old enough. This is my favorite. Yeah. One of my favorites. We're just not listening properly.
Very possible.
Radio signals specifically are only broadcast for a limited amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go have some other form of communication that we just don't know
that wouldn't pick up or that we don't know how to listen for.
There's isolation. Colonization is not the norm. They are too alien. Everyone is listening, but nobody is transmitting. Earth is deliberately not contacted.
Oh, yes. I have a story for that one, too.
Which is great. Earth is purposely isolated, which was even better.
Oh, because we're awful.
it is dangerous to communicate. And the last one, of course, is they are already here. But they're among us.
That's the X-Files right there.
So
Twin Peaks.
All right, so lots of possible explanations. So they range from the terrifying to the interesting.
To the kind of sad
Mormons
and boring.
What do we Mormons have to say about it?
Well, I feel like we have to be careful here and not to overstate doctrine. I think it's safe to say that we believe there is life elsewhere.
Okay. Let's start with King Follett.
Okay.
What do you know about him?
He died, and Joseph Smith went to his funeral and was sad. And he gave a nice talk.
He gave a very nice talk.
Yeah, a classic. If I'd known we were, in fact, I think King Follett, like we have a plan to do a whole King Follett episode someday, but I didn't reread it for today's episode, so I don't feel prepared to answer whatever question you're about to ask. We brought it up in an early episode, right? Didn't I spring it on you once?
You did, and I didn't know much about it at the time. It's very interesting. The King Follett Discourse. So it's a person's name. His name, he was not himself.
He was actually named King.
His name was
He
King.
had some of those kind of parents.
Mm-hmm. Right? So it was an address delivered at Nauvoo, Illinois by Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
Right? April 7th, 1944, 3 months before he died. And during this talk, he synthesized a lot of the teachings that he had already been giving.
Yeah.
Right?
King Follett is not canonized as doctrine, but it's quasi-canonized because so many things we think we believe as Latter-day Saints aren't necessarily in the Doctrine and Covenants, or not in a way that necessarily leads to the way we understand it, unless you're familiar with the King Follett Discourse. That's where a lot of our ideas come from.
Tell me more.
Well, like the whole idea that we understand... The only way to understand God is to understand who God is, and that He is like us, and was even more like us, and that we can become like Him, and God is an exalted man. That's all King Follett stuff. Mm-hmm. These are radical Mormon ideas that make a lot of people not like us, but this is where they come from.
Well, listen, I didn't actually know the history behind it until I did a bit of research for this, and.
While I was watching Endgame?
Yeah. So the idea is that you're right. It's not canonized, and it wasn't even transcribed.
Like a lot of things he said.
Okay, well, fair enough.
Where does this one come from? Did Wilford Woodruff write this down? Or?
There were 3 people that took notes.
Okay.
Right? All right. So there was someone that was taking shorthand named Thomas Bullock. William Clayton was doing longhand notes. Willard Richards was taking minutes, and Wilford Woodruff also took extensive contemporaneous notes and transferred them to his journal with editorializations. But his original notes were not preserved.
If he had any.
One author, Cyril, estimates that the surviving notes comprise 30% of the actual address.
Okay.
But that together, we've got all the topics.
What was the fancy word you had for making up numbers and making them sound scientific?
Statistics.
Error
propagation.
Error propagation. This sounds like historical error propagation.
There you go. So essentially, it was reconstructed. They put together a version that they think is pretty good.
Right.
Which sounds very New Testament to me.
Why do you say that?
So this one of the whole. I know
it's fine.
We're digressing a lot today. We're
having fun.
One of the maybe I should say Old Testament instead, but these old Bible books, right?
Yeah.
Where somebody originally just wrote them down, some stories.
Oh yeah.
Right, and then it got translated a bunch. And
right. There's a lot of intermediaries.
There's this particular disc. Maybe one of the reasons it hasn't been officially canonized is because
we can't really say "Thus saith the Lord."
We can't, right? Yeah, that's a good way to put it. President Lorenzo Snow summarized it, and he said, "As man now is, God once was. As God now is, man may be."
Yes.
So that's kind of the focus of the discourse.
Yes. It's a big one.
It's a big focus, and I don't want to actually cover that so much as I want to cover the other stuff. This is the part I wanted to talk about for canonization, right?
Yes.
It was originally not part of the history of the church, which is that long series of books.
Yes.
But in 1950, it was included in the revised edition of the History of the Church.
In 1950, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
And then in 1971, it was published in the Ensign.
Yes, I just had that open.
Yeah.
It's not the longest version.
Yeah. So, some of the topics. All right. So it talks about the fundamental nature of reality, the nature and character of God, humans' potential to become gods, and the tie between the living and their progenitors, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so this is kind of the Mormon cosmology, right?
That
not only does God exist, right, but that our existence parallelizes.
Yes. Stick some parallels in your parallel.
Other existences.
Yes.
Okay. And including other worlds.
Whatever that means.
Other worlds, like it says in the Doctrine and Covenants. There's a wonderful Wikipedia article called Mormon Cosmology. All right?
Okay.
And this is...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right? And the part that I wanted to focus on is other worlds and extraterrestrial life. This is kind of actually summarized in... the Encyclopedia of Mormonism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is an old book, right?
From about 20 years ago.
Yeah, 92.
Probably? 92, longer ago.
Okay. And here's this is by Johnson Hollis, and what he does is he summarizes a lot of the scriptures about it. Okay, and I'll just quote what it says. Like contemporary pluralists, Joseph Smith's system implied innumerable stellar systems with inhabited planets. In addition, Joseph taught that old physical worlds pass away and new ones are formed.
He was way ahead of the ball on that one.
Okay, this is also talked about in Moses.
Yes.
So that's Moses 1:35 and 38. Worlds are governed hierarchically. That's Abraham 3. Each system of worlds has its own laws. It's in D&C 88.
Did modern geology even exist at this point?
I don't know.
He is so far ahead of things.
Jesus Christ is the creator of all these worlds, and that's in the D&C. People assigned to different levels of glory inhabit different worlds, D&C 76.
Mm-hmm.
The earth has been the most wicked of all worlds, which is an interesting doctrine. That's Moses 7.
That's a fun one.
Resurrected beings also reside on worlds, D&C 88. And other worlds exist in both time and space.
Oh, I see where you're going with the resolution here.
Okay. This is the resolution, is that, yes, there are aliens.
They are us.
They are us. This is one potential resolution, right?
Resurrected beings don't need to talk to us. They're like, it's like
here.
walking down in the middle school to talk to kids. Why would you do that? You don't want to talk to those kids.
Right.
It's the awkward stage.
So the Wikipedia article about this has the following quote. The prevailing view among Mormons is that God once lived on a planet with his own higher God.
Right.
Okay, so that's what the Wikipedia article says.
Yes.
Is this true? Now before you answer,
okay.
Let me tell you the sources, because the sources are curious.
I don't doubt it.
They cite a BBC article.
Okay, really?
Called Religions, an Explanation of Mormon Beliefs About God. And they cite Mormonism for Dummies.
Oh, my friend wrote that book.
Oh, your friend?
Yeah.
Jana Reese.
Yeah. Well, it's probably a stretch to say. I was thinking of a different book, but I do know Jana Reese. And she co-wrote that with Chris Bigelow. Mm-hmm. Chris Bigelow is my frenemy.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So Mormonism for Dummies. So those are the sources. So do you agree with this statement?
So
is this what the Mormons believe?
So I'm going to say yes, we do. I would also say that Salt Lake would backpedal on that a little bit.
Well, they officially,
in their attempts to make us not weird.
I remember when I was a kid watching President Hinckley being interviewed on 60 Minutes. Okay?
Yes.
And
you were a kid?
Well, I wasn't a kid.
I was on my mission. How young are you?
No. I wasn't a kid. You're right.
Okay.
You and I are about the same.
That's what I thought. Yeah. All of a sudden you got younger in the last few episodes.
So, he said that, so he was asked that question. There's this statement, as God is, man once was, and so forth. What does that mean? And, President Hinckley, what he said was essentially, I don't know. And anybody who says they know, they don't know they don't know either.
Yeah. So,
this is the backpedaling I think you're talking about.
It's a punt, yeah.
And I think that because I think he probably recognized that he was, in an official role at that point.
Right, and I also think that's very honest.
Yeah.
I think to pretend that we know exactly what this means is foolish.
Yeah.
That said, I would say that the way it was phrased is essentially what the average Latter-day Saint, or at least the average American Latter-day Saint,
God once
believes.
lived on a planet with his own higher God.
Yes,
right.
I think that is what we tend to believe.
It is, but we don't. It's not like you say. It's something that's in our psyche.
Yeah.
Right. But it isn't in.
It's not going to be in a Sunday school manual.
It's not in a.
Probably not even said in Sunday school, except for
in
certain weird Sunday schools in certain rural towns, and you know where I'm talking about.
So, I've always thought this doctrine was interesting.
Yes.
And while it doesn't, it always made sense to me because the family is a family, right?
Right.
God and children and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it does. But it presents its own set of intellectual challenges on its own, of course.
It does, and as it turtles all the way down.
Yeah. Or up.
Or up, yeah. If you're thinking fourth dimensionally. Bruce R. McConkie, who I don't feel a great need to bow to, considered the idea that God is still learning and progressing is a heresy.
Right, I've heard that before.
Yeah, and that's not what it means. That God,
What does the phrase eternal progression mean then?
He says, eternal progression consists of living the kind of life God lives and of increasing in kingdoms and dominions everlastingly. Eternal progression means getting more stuff. Mm-hmm. To me, this is a very American idea of God, and I don't feel super comfortable with it. Not that I am rejecting the idea that God might not be growing in stuff, but I think that kind of misses the beauty of the whole thing. That, what does it mean to become like God, to get more stuff? That's not super satisfying.
So to be clear, the scripture does clearly state that worlds without number have I created. Right?
Yes.
And that those worlds have people on them.
Right.
That's what the scriptures say. That's what DNC says.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Worlds without number, that's not very precise.
Yeah.
And God in the DNC has a history of saying hyperbolic things to give us the idea without necessarily being completely accurate.
Which, considering the science at the time, was probably the best way to go about things.
Sure. Yeah, and maybe still is. I think that there's, and I didn't see this as a resolution. Maybe I can see how a couple might have been relevant, but I think one of the problems here is there's always the possibility that there's something about our consciousness where it's just something we can't understand. This is a problem in studies of consciousness, right? Can the conscious mind fathom itself? And I think this is the same kind of question when trying to comprehend another consciousness, especially an alien consciousness or God's consciousness. Do we really understand this stuff? And that's why I think President Hinckley was being very honest. What does it mean? I don't know. I don't know if I'm capable of knowing. I can imagine. I can write a great story about it. Do I understand it? No.
The entire Mormon cosmology article is really worth reading. It's got lots of good sources. It's very nice. I've always thought that the answer, this is my own opinion, and I don't hold it very strongly.
Okay.
But I always thought that the conclusion to Mormon cosmology and the Drake equation is these two of these last items from the Fermi paradox article. Earth is deliberately not contacted. Okay.
I have a short story for that one.
Okay, and Earth is purposefully isolated.
That's interesting.
Okay.
Are we quarantined or?
We're not quarantined. It's just that this is a preparatory time.
So this is the Mormon one in your opinion?
This is my opinion.
Yeah.
This is the Mormon one. Yeah. Now the reason I don't hold this opinion very strongly is because I could easily see another version of this where God has put us on this planet to try to and expects us to one day leave it. Right?
I actually think that seems very likely. And this ties into my constant mentioning, and someday we'll do an episode on this, that I don't believe in the millennium. I think that a more likely solution...
Which drives a few of my associates crazy. Okay?
That you don't believe in the millennium?
No,
or
this comment
of
you
mine?
And I made, and I kind of was interested in it, right?
Yeah.
Way back on episode 1, okay? and we're gonna have to we're gonna have to come back and cover this because it drives them crazy. They think we're very wrong, and I think they have some good points.
Oh, I would agree. Anybody has a good point when they disagree with me on this point. But I do think, like, my understanding of God, I think it's much more likely that something like God wants us to leave this planet, or some sort of like transhumanist philosophy. Like, I think there are better explanations of millennialism than the millennial, or the millennium. I feel like the millennium is a way of explaining it to our simple minds, but the real solution is going to be something much more awesome.
Tell me a story.
Relative to what we're doing?
Earth is deliberately not contacted.
All right. So, also in Monsters and Mormons.
Okay.
The short story Bokev Momen. Some aliens flying through space, who are polygamous, by the way.
Of course.
They come across a dead spaceship. All spaceships are living because the only way to travel through hyperspace is through these living creatures that have not learned how to do it artificially. And these particular aliens are short little gray guys with big eyes. You may have seen them on television.
I have.
They are not good at respecting the do not contact list, of which Earth is on.
Oh.
And from this alien spaceship, which has died, and its staff has also died, they rescue a not dead human, whose name is Elder Christensen. And Elder Christensen shares with these aliens a Book of Mormon and a picture of Jesus hanging on the cross. And the aliens are startled because every civilization in the galaxy believes in an anointed one who has certain wounds, but no one has an explanation for the wounds. No one's sure where the story started. And to discover this religion, which all alien species share on a do not contact planet, is startling. And it's a fun story.
It's a very fun story.
It's worth reading.
Yeah.
I should give the author's name. I'm sorry. D. Michael Martinson. Martindale? Let me double check. Martin something. Martindale.
This story is obviously very good and very entertaining, and I'd like to read it. It sounds a bit chauvinistic to me, using your term.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, and this comes back to what we mentioned earlier, this scripture that talks about the Earth being the most wicked planet, right?
Yeah.
Right? About how Christ came here and atoned for this.
Yeah, where is it?
World.
Somebody said, an early leader, that our planet is the only one wicked enough to kill the Messiah.
Right. Which I always thought was... This is one of the parts of Mormon cosmology that, in my opinion, it doesn't jive. And if it's in the Doctrine and Covenants, of course, well...
After what we said last week, I don't know if we can say that. So.
I respect the Doctrine and Covenants,
yes.
Of course. This doctrine, to me, defeats the mediocrity principle.
Yes, so instead of being exceptional, we're exceptionally wicked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which to me goes against goes in the opposite direction. Like, I don't see. Just like when I was a kid, I always marveled that I happened to end up in the true church.
Right.
Right.
And now you get to marvel that you live on the one planet where Jesus came to.
Right. Both of these always seemed too convenient to me.
Yes.
I've grown to, accept the first one, of course. Right. I do believe in the church and its teachings and Book of Mormon. I feel very fortunate to be so, and I accept that as just a fluke of, being, lucky, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, but the other one, I don't know. This is one I've never really bought, and I've always wondered if it isn't perhaps misinterpreted or miscommunicated somehow.
Well, I mean, the atonement is already something which we're pleased to admit we can't understand.
Right.
So who knows how many ways we misunderstand it.
I love talking about aliens and aliens. Okay. I really think that our church has this perspective, this phrase, this scripture in Moses 1:33.
33.
Okay. It's the one that I've always really loved. Okay. And it says, "And worlds without number have I created, and I also created them for mine own purpose. And by the Son I created them, which is mine only begotten."
Okay.
Right? This scripture has always caught my attention, right? In the movie Contact, right, the little girl has the radio. She's sitting with her dad, right? And she's tuning in.
Yeah.
Right? This is my version of that in many worlds out there.
Yeah.
it's dizzying to think about. It's also very comforting if you're not a member of the church and you look out into the unknown and see nobody. It's very lonely.
Yes.
But I look out into the unknown and I see family. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pro this belief. I think it's I think instead of something that we should be nervous about every time Mitt Romney's on TV, it's something that we should really embrace and promote, because I feel this is a doctrine that human society is going to need. If they don't need it now, they will need it soon. I think this is something we should be promoting.
And it is a nice resolution. Don't worry about it. We'll find them, and we'll...
Yeah.
Whether or not they look like us is irrelevant, of course.
It's a fun question, but yeah.
But we just know that they're out there. We have brothers and sisters, literal brothers and sisters that aren't living on this planet.